Every day, we use money to buy food, pay bills, and transfer money online or make UPI payments. But have you ever wondered how economists or the RBI knows how much money actually exists in the economy? More importantly, why does it even matter? The answer lies in today's topic, money supply, one of the most important concepts in the macroeconomics. Hello everyone, my name is Disha. Welcome to Economy Simplified series of Drishti IAS. Let's get started. So I have attached this question to make you understand that how much important this topic is for your examination perspective. UPSC has asked this topic in 2020. Okay, you do not have to solve it right now. Once we are done with the concepts, we will solve it in the last slide. All right. Now, first of all, before understanding the money supply, let us understand that what is stock of money. Okay, we will read the definition first. Stock of money refers to the total quantity of money. Okay, it's a total quantity of money existing in an economy at a particular point of time. Okay, whenever you are reading a definition, just focus on the keywords. Now here the keywords are total quantity of money and at a particular point of time, irrespective of who holds it. Okay. For example, in our economy, there are 100 rupees. 100 rupees are there in the market. Now out of these 100 rupees, 70 rupees is held by the public, general public. Out of this, 20 rupees, okay, 20 rupees is held by the government. Government has its own treasury, okay, and the rest 10 rupees are held by the banks. Banks also maintain some interbank deposits. Banks also keep some money as their reserves. So, all of this money will be counted or will be a part of stock of money, okay. All the money include money held by the public, money held by the government treasury, money held by the banks. All right. So, stock of money refers to total quantity of money existing in an economy at a particular point of time. If I ask you that on 6th of August 2026, how much is the stock of money? So, you will tell me the whole data, okay, irrespective of who holds it. All right. Now, let's talk about the money supply. What is money supply? Now, you will be able to understand it in a much better way because we have read stock of money first. Now, see, money supply refers to total amount of money available with the public in an economy at a particular point of time. Are you able to spot a difference? What is the difference between stock of money and money supply? Stock of money doesn't care about who holds that money, right? But money supply says it refers to the total amount of money available with the public in an economy at a particular point of time. Again, let me give you an example. For example, in an economy, there are 100 rupees available. Okay. Out of 100 rupees, 70 rupees is held by the public. Rest 30 rupees is held by the government and the rest 10 rupees is held by the banks. So, amongst all three, which component will be a part of money supply? This one. Okay, the money held by the general public. What constitutes a public? Individuals and businessmen. Individuals like me and you, and businessmen who invests in a businesses, right? Who makes a lot of transactions. So that is the difference between stock of money and money supply. Money supply refers to total amount of money available with the public in an economy at a particular point of time. I hope you are able to understand this. Now in India, RBI is the one who measures and publishes various measures of money supply. There are a lot of monetary aggregates which we have to study in our upcoming slides. Now, RBI publishes those monetary aggregates. Okay, so the onus is on the RBI. Now, money supply only includes money held by the public. It excludes the money held by the money creating sector such as government and banking system. Why does it has excluded the money which is a part of government sector? See, the government has a treasury. For example, if the government has collected 100 crore rupees as a tax and has deposited that particular amount in its treasury, so is that money available for the general public to use? The answer is no. We cannot have access to that money. So that's why we will not count it in our money supply. Also, when we talk about the banking system, banks also reserve certain amount of money as a part of their CRR. Banks also do interbank deposits. Banks also keeps certain money in the RBI. So can we avail that money? Can the general public use that money? The answer is no. That's why these two are not a part of your money supply. However, when we will study the monetary aggregates, there are some exceptions. Okay, I'm telling you this in advance. There are some exceptions that we will study in later slides. Okay, now why money supply is important? Reason number one, it helps the RBI to formulate monetary policy. You might be aware of this fact that RBI has the sole main responsibility to control inflation in our economy. Now, if RBI wants to control inflation in the market, then it is very important for RBI to know that how much money exists in our economy, right? So to control inflation, to formulate its monetary policy, it's very important to study this money supply. So it helps RBI to formulate its monetary policy. It also helps to control inflation. RBI would be able to control inflation only if RBI is aware how much money is there in the economy. If the money is too much, if the money supply is a lot, then that means there is a condition of inflation. If the money supply is too less, then that means there is a recession coming on. So to control inflation, it is important for RBI to know about the money supply. Then it helps to maintain the liquidity in the economy. It also helps to measure the health of the economy. Okay, by looking at the money supply or by reading the monetary aggregates, we can understand that how our economy is performing. All right, now let's move forward. Now, before studying the monetary aggregates, there are some few concepts which I want you to understand. Okay, now let us understand what are deposits. See, a deposit is a money kept by individual or institution with a bank or post office for safekeeping, earning interest, or making payments. Okay, now, let's just say that you received your salary, that is 40,000 rupees. Now, out of those 40,000 rupees, 25,000 rupees you went to a bank and you gave that 25,000 rupees to your bank. Now, this is an example of a deposit. You have deposited your money with the banks. Why do we deposit our money? So that our money remains safe. You cannot carry that whole amount. You cannot keep that whole amount in your home, right? Neither do we can carry that amount wherever we go. So that our money remains safe, we do deposits. We also do deposit to earn interest. Banks also pays a certain amount of interest if we deposit our money to the banks or post office as per. Okay, all right. Now, if you have to deposit your money, you have two options. Either you can go to banks, whatever deposits you will make in bank, these are called bank deposits. And there is other category as well, that is post office deposit. You can also deposit your money in the post offices. Okay. Now, bank deposits are those deposits which are kept with the commercial bank. Now, these deposits are regulated by the RBI. RBI make rules with regard to bank deposits and they form an important part of money supply. Okay. If we talk about post office deposits, these are those deposits which are kept with India's Post. They are operated by Department of Post, and most of the deposits which are a part of post office, they do not form a part of money supply. There are various deposits such as national saving certificates. So all of these deposits do not constitute a part of money supply. Okay, most of the deposits from which are a part of post office deposits, they are not a part of money supply. All right. Now deposits can also be classified into demand deposits and time deposits. Let us understand that as well. See, demand deposits, money that can be withdrawn by the depositor at any time without prior notice. As the name suggests, demand. You can withdraw that money at any point of time as per your demand. You do not have to give the prior notice to the banks. Now, what are the features of demand deposits? First feature is it is withdrawable on demand. Whenever you are in need of money, you can withdraw that amount. It has a very high liquidity. Now, liquidity is what? Anything, how easily anything can be converted into cash. This is what liquidity tells us. Now, demand deposits have a very high liquidity because at any point of time, you can convert that amount into cash. And it is used for day-to-day transaction. For example, you have made a transaction of 300 rupees through your UPI account. That is an example of, it is used for day-to-day transaction. Okay, I hope I am able to explain you. All right. Now, the next category is time deposits. That is also called as term liabilities. The other name of time deposits is time liabilities as well. Okay. Now, time deposits are those deposits which have been deposited for a fixed period of time. Okay. You have made some deposits for a fixed period of time. The best example for this is FDs, that are fixed deposits. For example, I have made an FD of 3 lakh rupees for 2 years. Now, this is an example of time deposit. Can I withdraw this amount at any point of time? The answer is no. Okay, I cannot withdraw this at any point of time. It cannot be withdrawn freely before the maturity. Once this amount will get matured, then only I will be able to withdraw this. If you will withdraw this amount before the maturity period, then you have to pay some penalties to the banks. The main difference between the demand deposit and time deposits are time deposit offers you the more interest because your money is stored for here for a very long period of time. So that's why time deposits offers you a more certain amount of interest. Okay, if we talk about the liquidity portion, time deposits are less liquid than your demand deposits. Now, what is the reason behind that? You have to answer me in the comment section. Now, let us talk about the monetary aggregates. RBI studies money supply through the help of these monetary aggregates. The monetary aggregates are different measures used by the RBI to estimate the total money supply in the economy. Each aggregate includes a different combination of currency and deposits depending on their liquidity. RBI uses these monetary aggregates to measure the money supply. Okay. Now we have to study about the M1, M2, M3 and M4. Let us start. Now let's talk about the M1 first. M1 constitutes CUDD plus OD. CU is cash in hand. Okay. CU includes currency with the public. How much currency does the public have? For example, if I have 5,000 rupees as a cash, I have stored 5,000 rupees as a cash, then that will be a part of currency with the public. That is currency notes and coins circulation excluding the cash held by the commercial bank. Very important point. CU will not include the cash which the banks have. Banks also have certain amount of cash available with them. But can the general public use them? The answer is no. We cannot avail that cash, right? So that's why cash held by commercial banks are not a part of money supply. Always remember this. So the first component is CU. The next component is demand deposits. I've already explained you the demand deposits. Now, demand deposits with commercial banks, including current account and savings account deposits. Okay, let us read this once again. M1 includes currency with the public, and the second thing it includes is demand deposits. All the demand deposits held by the commercial bank is a part of M1. Okay, now the third thing it includes is other deposits with RBI. There are certain international institutions and foreign central bank which deposits their money in the RBI. Now that is also a part of M1. Now this is a general exception. If we talk about the definition of money supply, I have explained you that money supply includes all the money which is available for the general public. But see, this is also a part of money supply. Other deposits with RBI. Can the general public use that money? The answer is no. But still, RBI has defined it as a part of money M1, that is monetary aggregate. Okay. So the demand deposits maintained by the RBI by foreign central banks, international financial institutions and quasi government institutions. But the weightage of this particular component is very less as compared to both of them. So that's why. So if I have to revise again, M1 includes currency with the general public, demand deposits of commercial banks and other deposits with RBI. Now let us move to M2. Now M2 includes what? All the components of M1 which we have studied, that is cash in hand plus demand deposits plus other deposits of RBI. One extra component which we have to study in M2 is money kept in the post office savings account. Now I've explained you earlier that we also deposit our money in the post offices, right? So what is post office saving account? It is a type of a demand deposit only. Okay. These are the saving account deposits maintained in the post savings bank. Alright. They can be withdrawn, but they are not as convenient or widely used for the daily payments. These savings account, the transaction, the money stored in the saving account are not as widely used as the demand deposits of commercial banks. Therefore, they are added separately to M1 to form M2. So M2 includes what? Cash in hand, demand deposits of commercial banks, other deposits of RBI plus post office savings account. Okay. Now let us come to M3. Now M3 is very important because M3 is known as the broad money. Technically, RBI is officially called M3 as the broad money and it is the most widely used monetary aggregate by the RBI. Alright, most widely used measure of money supply in India. Now let us see what it includes. M3 includes all the components of M1, that is cash in hand plus demand deposits plus other deposits. What else does it include? It includes all the time deposits with commercial banks. What was time deposits? I've explained you earlier, right? It includes all the time deposits of banks, commercial banks. FD. I've given you the example of FD. FD is an example of time deposits. It is used by RBI for monetary policy, for liquidity management and inflation analysis. That's why M3 is very important. Okay. If in an examination, if the question comes that which monetary aggregator is called as the broad money. So You will choose M3. Okay. Now the last option is M4. M4 is a very broad monetary aggregate. M4 includes all the components of M3 plus total deposits with Post Office Savings Organization. Let us read this one by one. Now M3 includes what? M3 also included the components of M1, right? So what were the components of M1? Currency with the general public, demand deposits with bank, other deposits with RBI, plus this net time deposits with commercial bank. It was added in M3, okay? M1 plus net time deposits with commercial banks. All right. Now what else does it include? It includes total deposits with Post Office Savings Organization. This means what? Post Office also has a two category of deposit, demand deposits and time deposit. Okay. So M4 includes demand deposits and time deposits of Post Office as well as demand deposits and time deposits of commercial banks. Am I clear with this? Okay. What are the features of M4? It is the broadest monetary aggregate in India. It includes all the components of M3 plus Post Office deposits. Also, there is one exception. You have to remember this, that the following Post Office small saving instruments are not included in M4. That is National Saving Certificates, Kisan Vikas Patra, Indira Vikas Patra. It is not a part of your M4. They are not a part of your money supply. Why? Because they are treated as an investment. Okay, that's why they are not a part of M4. Now I know this topic is very complicated. So to simplify it, I have also attached this table. We will read this table, we will revise it, okay? And we will revise all the monetary aggregates which has been written over there. Now, if we talk about M1, M1 includes cash in hand, demand deposits of commercial bank and other deposits of RBI. Here, cash in hand, demand deposits of commercial bank and other deposits of RBI. I have not made a separate table out of it, but you have to remember it. All right. Now, M2 includes what? M2 included all the components of M1, that is cash in hand, demand deposits of bank and demand deposits of Post Office. Okay. If we talk about M3, which is also called as the broad money, what it includes? All the components of M1, that is cash in hand, demand deposits of bank and time deposits of bank. Okay. All right. Now, M4 includes all the major components of money supply. That is cash in hand, demand deposits of commercial banks, time deposits of bank, demand deposits of Post Office, time deposits of Post Office. So, you can take a screenshot of this table. You can learn from this. Okay. It is easier for you to revise. If you will use this table, it will become very easier for you to revise. Now, let us solve this practice question. Okay. Now, question 1. A person withdraws 1 lakh rupees in cash from their demand deposits. Okay. See, in money supply, we know that demand deposit is a part of money supply. We also know that cash in hand is also a part of money supply. Both these components are a part of money supply. Now, it says a person withdraws 1 lakh rupees in cash from their demand deposits. That means 1 lakh rupees have been subtracted from the money supply. Okay. What will be the immediate effect on the aggregate money supply in the economy? What will be the immediate effect? If that person has withdrawn 1 lakh rupees from their demand deposits, then what will be his cash on hand? It will be 1 lakh rupees. Because if he has withdrawn that amount, that means he will keep that amount in himself. That will become a part of cash in hand, right? So what will be the immediate effect? Option A, it will decrease by 1 lakh, it will increase by 1 lakh, it will increase by more than 1 lakh, it will remain unchanged. Now you have to choose this correct option. I have explained you this whole question. Okay. Now the next question, this has not been asked in your previous year, but it is just a practice question. Which of the following monetary aggregates is generally referred to as broad money in India? Option A, M1, option B, M2, option C, M3, option D, M4. Okay. Now, write your answers in the comment section. I hope you liked today's lecture. If you want videos on different topics related to economy, you can write down in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe. And do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.